How do you automate the deal sourcing process so you can spend more time closing good deals instead of searching for them? Let's break that down. My name is Marco Palmero. I'm the founder of Ulysses, and my company helps people that want to find more deals and originating proprietary transactions, mostly off market. We operate globally and we have helped people across a variety of different industries, starting with private equity groups, search funds, investment bankers, family offices, you name it. Everybody that wants to find more businesses that are available for sale, that might be considering an exit, is coming to us for support, because we originate deals so they can spend more time closing the good ones and make more money in less time. Now, this concept of automation is something that is very popular right now, especially with the advent of AI. And I think a lot of people are getting confused by the fact that they feel everything should be automated or that everything could be automated. Well, in reality, that is rarely the case. And there are some application to AI and automation, even in the M&A world, but we've got to be careful about what it is that we're automating, and more specifically, why is it that we're automating it? And so I think there are two patterns of thought that are kind of like surrounding the industry. One of which is people that believe that references and referrals are the only way to find deals. And on the other side, people that are more like the youth or like the young generation, and they believe that automation is the way to go, but they almost entirely trust automation to do everything in their process, and ultimately they end up creating something that is very robotic and not authentic, and therefore not getting the results they need when it comes to getting in front of business owners, developing relationships, and ultimately finding proprietary deals that they can ultimately close and execute on. Now, both beliefs are kind of like not conducive to deal flow, because they are fundamentally trusting one way of doing things as the only way of doing things. And they're not looking at kind of like the whole process as something that needs to be adaptable, and it needs to kind of like look at the market for what it is, and ultimately find solutions that are conducive to results in that particular environment. One of the things that I always stress when it comes to deal flow is that there's no one way of doing things. There's no cookie cutter solution. First of all, because you're going to have a very specific search, very specific target company that you want to find. And that alone is already a unique element that differentiates you from anybody else. But also the geography and many other elements and aspects of your search will create a very unique environment in which you need to operate. And so it is counterproductive for you to think that there's one way of doing things that is applicable to everyone and that is just going to produce the same results. Now, there are principles that you can follow and that you can use as guidelines, but ultimately there are ways to decline these principles into your specific niche that will ensure you get maximum results. And automation and AI and all that stuff are no different. So first, the most important thing, let's talk about deal origination. Now, deal origination is the most time-consuming task of the M&A process. That's pretty much a given. Everybody knows that it takes a long time to find a good deal, because you look at it, tons of transactions, most of them are not going to be a fit, and so you're really playing the numbers game. You're trying to optimize for fit, but you know that you're going to need to look at many transactions before you ultimately find one that is actually suitable to your needs. So that requires you to look at many opportunities in your given market, but most importantly, it requires you to tap into any available opportunity in that particular market and not leave anything untapped. Now, that is one of the mistakes that the referral guys are making, because they feel that the only way to get deals is through their network of peers. And despite the fact that network might be very strong, it doesn't know everyone there is to know in the industry, especially if you're looking to acquire assets in the $1 to $50 million enterprise range, and you're doing it in a very big market. Now, that mistake is fundamentally leaving a ton of money on the table. Generally speaking, 75% of the deals in any given market are proprietary, so they're not listed anywhere, which means if you're relying on your network of referrals, you're leaving 3 deals out of 4 on the table just because you feel you're basically relinquishing control of your own destiny onto somebody else, and you're waiting for somebody to bring you a deal before you can actually act on it. On the flip side, if you are just relying on technology, you're never really getting deep enough into a conversation to ultimately get in front of a business owner that actually trusts you as somebody who can actually deliver on a sale and ultimately close on a deal. So you're always staying surface level, and you never get to the finish line. And that's one of the issues that a lot of people mention to us when they come for specific and technical issues, and they say, well, we feel that what we created is good, but we're not getting in front of business owners. Yes, it's because you are only looking at the technicals, not at the strategic part of your process, and therefore you're trying to optimize for tech. Well, in reality, you should optimize for human connection and kind of like believability, if we want to say so. Having said that, let's discuss what are the parts of this process that you can actually automate, how you can use automation in AI and whatever you want to call it to find more deals, and how you can ensure that process brings you more deals virtually on autopilot so you can spend more time closing or negotiating the good ones. First, we'll talk about the data. Now, data used to be a very tricky problem. Like, I should say, it was probably one of the biggest issues that people were facing, and that is, kind of like proven by the fact that there are a million platforms that sell you data. I mean, the names of the big guys that charge you $20, $30, $40,000 a year to give you access to an enriched database of information that in most cases is just a glorified LinkedIn list that has been optimized with industry data. And that is a huge issue that people used to face, that they had to rely on that particular data provider in order to find information about businesses, in order to do research on businesses. And the problem with that is that they were most likely blindsided by these providers, because a lot of the data was not accessible to these providers. And so if you were trusting them as your source of truth, you were ultimately thinking the market was what you could find on that particular data provider. Well, in reality, there was much more that you can look into if you only had a system to originate more, and I would say more reliable data, if we want to say so. Now, thanks to automation, thanks to AI, thanks to everything that is happening in the world right now, it is becoming much easier to get access to quality information, and most specifically, cross-check information between multiple data providers. Now, that ensures that, well, first of all, you're not paying hundreds of thousands of dollars on subscriptions that might just help you for 1%, 2%, 3% of the total addressable market that you're going after. But also, it enables you to create a very comprehensive data source or data list, if we want to call it this way, that I don't want to say guarantees that you're going to find every company that is available, because that will just be a lie, but at least it brings the amount of companies that are available in any given market, and it kind of like raises the standard, raises the bar. It gives you more coverage over your specific industry, market, or kind of like sector. That is true specifically for popular markets like the US, like the UK. It might not be the case for less developed countries from an M&A perspective, but automation and AI are getting there faster. And that is something that, we have seen over the last 24 months We are switching from a process where people used to rely on one, two data providers to a process where they're ultimately consolidating multiple data providers into one place so that they can come up with information that is as accurate as possible, but ultimately they're not leaving any opportunity outside. Because, you know, you might say, well, I'm trusting this data provider to find information for me. But if it is only able to find you 50% of what's available out there, then, um, you know, they're basically doing you a disservice. I don't care if that 50% of data that they provide you is enriched and it is very sophisticated and has a lot of information about the company. That is stuff that you can ultimately find yourself as you dig deeper into your own due diligence, into your assessment about the business. And it's not really something that you care about too much when you are in early stages of a search. All that matters in the beginning is to understand whether the company is in the geography that you're targeting, whether it is in the sector that you're targeting, whether it is more or less the size that you're targeting. And if we want to talk about revenue, we can include that as well. But aside from that, there's nothing else that really matters. Once you have these initial filters in place, you can start, building a relationship with that business owners, and then you will find additional data on the company if the opportunity appears to be a fit. So it's totally irrelevant for you to have all that data up front. It just creates a lot of work that is not really justified, and it is not really, I would say, it's not really useful, because how can you work on all that useless data if you don't even know if the person is interested in selling in the first place? And for those of you thinking signals matter something when you're looking at these data providers, think again, that's just crap. I mean, I'll just tell you for things for what they are. Taking a step back once again. So from a data perspective, automation and AI are enabling you to consolidate data in one place, have one source of truth that basically puts together multiple providers in one place, and at the same time also uses places like Google and countless enrichment features to ultimately find virtually every company that you can think of in your addressable market. That is very useful because it gives you a solid foundation to start with, because once you have, let's say, 90% plus coverage over your market, you can fairly assume that if everything you do afterwards is good, you're going to get in front of every business owner that is interested in selling right now or in the next 3 months, 6 months, whatever. And you're not going to be wondering, well, have I really contacted all the business owners that are available out there? That is something that you can absolutely fix right now when it comes to automation and AI. And it used to be something that was almost impossible to fix for a human. I mean, unless you had a kind of like army of analysts that were scanning Google Maps all day, creating lists of people, or you were hiring somebody out of India to scrape lists for you. But that again tended to be inaccurate as well, because the information you got was not really, the quality that you wanted. So data is definitely something that you can fix through AI and automation. Now, once you get to the data part, it becomes a question of, okay, I now have all the information I need. How do I use this information to reach out to business owners in an effective manner so that I can increase the likelihood that this person is gonna respond to me? That is when we get into messaging. Now, I'm assuming, of course, that we're going to source deals off market, because that's most of what we do. And that's how, the 75% plus of the opportunities are ultimately originated, like in a proprietary way, building a system that runs for you and that you ultimately control. Now, if you're doing something like that, or if you are working with someone like us to do that, the most important part that you need to focus on is the messaging, because you need to be aware and fully aware that automation, AI, and all these things cannot solve for personalization, at least not yet. And you're gonna see a lot of people pitching you things like, well, we can create very personalized messages that resonate with the business owner, but the reality of it is they're just gonna look weird in the eye of a business owner. And in most cases, you're getting these statements from marketing people that are kind of like uh, trying to position themselves as M&A expert, when in reality they're just marketing guys. What is the issue with that? Well, the issue is that they're trying to use a process that is optimized for selling products and services in an industry where what we're trying to target is not somebody that will become a buyer of a product or a service. It's somebody that is trying to make a life-changing decision in terms of selling his company or not. And even if you are a broker or if you're an advisor, you might be thinking, well, I'm going to be selling my services to him. Yeah, that's true, but you're still not doing it in the conventional way, because the person that you're getting in front of is somebody that will ultimately put a piece of himself on the market, in this case, the company. And so the way you connect with them needs to be dramatically different. And what I found after doing this for dozens of companies across dozens of industries, check out our testimonials, our case studies if you want to find out more about that. But what I found through all these experimentations is that simplicity really wins, because we're dealing with business owners. People are busy. Trying to overcomplicate stuff for no reason just makes the message very, very hard to understand, very hard to digest. It doesn't matter if you're sending it via email, if you're doing it with a script via cold call, if you're doing it via mail letter. It doesn't matter the way you do it. Simplicity really wins. And ultimately, personalization using automation, AI, and all these sorts of things ultimately produces the opposite results in terms of what you're hoping to achieve, because it just makes you look like a big fucking weirdo. I'm just gonna say it for what it is, because it is just like that. I mean, if you reach out to a business owner complimenting him about an achievement he reached with his company 5 years ago, he's gonna wonder, who the fuck is this guy to know all that stuff about me and send it across as a cold solicitation or something like that. And it's just going to say, well, I'm never going to answer to this guy. However, there are some ways you can achieve personalization while still maintaining that level of simplicity that I just discussed. And that is by adding specific qualifiers into your message, independently, again, of the channel that you use, that will pre-screen and pre-qualify people based on what it is that you're looking for. So if you have a specific revenue threshold, a specific geography, a specific sub-industry that you're targeting, you can include these elements into your messaging and make it slightly personalized, although it is not unique, and that will still produce much better results compared to just the AI generated type of message that is just going to look weird. And by the way, it might be flagged by providers, email providers, phone providers as a spam, because these filters are getting increasingly better at detecting AI-driven type of messages. And so I would pay close attention to it when it comes to automating your system for finding deals, because one of the ways you can completely kill your results is by, again, trying to optimize for the technicals. And one of these technicals might be personalization, not realizing you shouldn't use it at all. I mean, at least not in the beginning. So start with simplicity and then see what simplicity generates. If simplicity produces results, keep doing that and maybe make a few tweaks until the system stops working. Then if you want to test hyper-personalization or stuff like that, do that by all means. But don't think that that is the only way to solve your problem, because it is not. Now, I talked about messaging. Let's talk about the channels that you're going to use. This is where automation really becomes kind of like it shines, I should say, because when we talk about AI automation, in especially originating deals in this particular market, in this particular era, it is becoming very important to get in front of a lot of business owners in a variety of different ways. Uh, Long gone are the days when it was enough for you to have a cold calling funnel or an email funnel or a LinkedIn funnel, because people don't respond to that. I mean, think about yourself. You might have specific preferences in the way you interact with people. I mean, you might like to consume video content, you might like to read, you might like to respond to emails, or you might be more active on the phone or via text message. And for you, as a buyer or as an advisor, for you to try to put every business owner into a category and say, well, I'm just going to use the phone to reach out to them, is almost like saying, I'm going to force you to respond to me through a channel that I decided is the best way to reach you. But that is not reality, especially today. And so when it comes to automation and AI, it becomes very, very effective to create a multi-channel system that includes all these channels into one cohesive system. And it ensures you can ultimately get in front of people through the channel they're more comfortable with. And what it does really, it skyrockets your results, because if somebody wants to reply to you via email because it's comfortable there, he will reply via email. If he wants to reply on LinkedIn, he will do that. If he wants to reply via call, we'll do that. We're basically giving people the opportunity to get back to us using the channel they're more comfortable with. And that's so important. I cannot emphasize enough. And it used to be very difficult to do because, of course, tracking that thing will be a big mess. But now through automation and AI, you can create a very simple and organized system that basically tracks where this person has been contacted. And if it hasn't responded on one specific channel, it tries in an alternative way. And it keeps doing that until we get some sort of feedback from the individual. That ensures, one, we increase the likelihood that this person is going to respond if he's interested. Plus, it reduces kind of like the spam rate, if we want to call it this way. So we're not going to be perceived as annoying, if we want to say so, because we're not reaching out continuously on the same channel. We're just splitting and spreading our efforts across a variety of those. Last point, because I don't want to make this video too long, is the system that you build around this. So if you want to automate and streamline your process for finding deals, once you have all these three elements in place, data, messaging, and channels, it becomes a question of how do you consolidate all this stuff into one place so you can have the full picture of what's happening in your pipeline at any given time. Used to be that, big firms were hiring a dozen of different associates, and they were having these guys oversee opportunities and transactions continuously, because that's really, it was the only way for them to do that. Now it's becoming much simpler to keep track of all that information in a condensed way through a backend system that consolidates all that data that I just discussed with you, all the people that respond across a variety of different channels, and organizes that interactions in a very simple way. So you can basically open up a window and see exactly how your pipeline is developing, what are the deals that are moving towards the finish line, what are the active negotiations, and so on and so forth. And that's, by the way, one of the things that we do with the clients that work with us in a bespoke way. We create this backend infrastructure that ensures they can just log into a place and see exactly what's happening at any point in time. How many opportunities have been, we've originated, how many are currently under negotiations, how many calls were booked with qualified sellers, enriched information about each company that has already been qualified, and so on and so forth. That is another point that you can very much, I would say, optimize through automation and AI. All these things we do in a bespoke way. So if you don't want to do it yourself, you feel this is just overwhelming, we can definitely take care of that for you. You can check out the links below to find out more about how to apply. Generally, we have wait lists because we only take a few clients at a time. So see if there are available spots before you actually proceed. But you can get on the phone with our team and map out a solution that works in your specific case if you're interested in finding out more. But having said that, once you have an infrastructure like that, then it becomes all about execution. And that's really what I feel. It's not something that you can automate a lot, because once you start an interaction with a business owner, it all comes down to you and your ability to negotiate and structure deals. And so, in my opinion, at least based on what I've seen so far, deal execution, so from the time a person is interested and there's a first touch point via phone or via meeting, it becomes really manual. There are some follow-ups and parts of the funnel that can be automated, especially if the person is not necessarily ready to exit right now. But most of the active execution of the deal still remains manual, because there's so many nuances that get in the way that require human discretion. And in my opinion, I would not trust AI to handle that part yet. And I haven't seen automation being effective in taking care of that part. And I'm talking about due diligence, I'm talking about legal and accounting things, I'm talking about negotiations and all that sort of stuff. That is the part of the process that you still need to oversee. And in order for you to do that effectively, you can basically outsource the other part, which is the beginning, the origination, which used to take a lot of time and a few different associates just for you to get by. Now you can streamline it and you can build a system that runs virtually on autopilot and basically run it internally, or you can have somebody like us run it for you. I've talked with a few private equity groups that already have done that, a few search funds that also have done that, and results are really night and day, especially for small teams that don't have maybe the ability to hire an analyst for 80 grand a year. With probably a tenth of the cost, they're able to solve for the same problem and still get the quality deal flow that they were hoping to get, while still being competitive, because most of the off-market opportunities are deals that your kind of like competitors, again, are not looking at, because in most cases they're either relying on the referrals that I mentioned at the beginning, or they're trying to find deals the old way. And through automation, through streamlining, you can ultimately get more deals into your pipeline, closed multi-million-dollar transactions faster, and focus on the part of the process that still requires human supervision and human interaction, which is deal execution. So if you're interested in outsourcing the first part of the process, deal origination, finding your next multi-million-dollar transaction, check the link below, schedule a time to speak with my team. We'll then map out a bespoke solution that applies to your specific needs. Check out the link below, and I'll see you in the next one.